the Adelaide Grand Prix, warming up the tyres. A terrific little field for this race. It's going to be beauty. A lot of close racing always in this class, and we're looking forward to it. Let's join our commentators, which is headed, of course, by Big D, Darryl Eastlake.
Thank you, Kenny. Yes, well, this is our national formula, really. This is a formula we do have that lines up overseas, and 40 cars, AJ. 40 cars here. We'll go through the grid very quickly. Stephen White is on pole. John Blanchard, very experienced driver. He's on the front row as well in second place. Then Quebec, who is a local South Australian driver. Dutton, Moody, McConville make up the top 6. We'll run quickly through the top dozen. It's Howard, Searle, Mulhern, Reid, Griffiths and Richardson. But as we said, 40 are going to line up. And Alan, this is a true indication of the strength of the class here. And what a great story from Russell Ingall. I mean, that really does cement everything that Jackie Stewart said and you've said all afternoon.
Well, there you go. I mean, we have 40 starters. That speaks for itself. Really, competitive field of people. Russell Ingall deserves all the help he can get. At the end of the day, he bit the bullet, packed the bags and went to England and had it go. And instead of staying back here and talking about, if only this and if only that, at least he got off his bum and went over there and did it.
Welcome to the 9 commentary box. Phil Brannigan. Now, Phil, you're the marketing man, the promotions man for this group. You must be pretty happy to see such a healthy lineup of cars.
Yes, Darryl, everyone's been looking forward to this race since 1988, which was Formula Ford's last appearance at the Australian Grand Prix. We could have almost started 60 cars in this race, but 40 cars, and this is going to be very competitive.
All right, we'll come back to you shortly. 8 laps, and it'll be very, very close here because there's nothing between any of these cars. Believe you me, the slipstreaming we'll see here will be fantastic. The race distance, 30.240 kilometres. Waiting for the lights to come up as the grid forms. Look at this, 40 cars, they're right around the bottom of the corner, but the top dozen or so, you can be sitting way back and suddenly find yourself with a slingshot up front. Watch for the green light now. Stephen White will have a lot of pressure from John Blanchard. Racing now, there they go. Oh, and a bad start there off the line. Or was it Blanchard? We'll pick that up as they come through now, but White had a bad start.
Yeah, that was a shame. I think he dropped the clutch with not quite enough revs on board and nearly stalled it, but he's recovered and he's off, so that'll be a worthwhile, because he was on pole by quite a bit, 0.7 a second in the Formula Ford. That's a lot.
Well, Phil, this young fellow, Stephen White, he's in car 75, or 15 it is, 15, car 15, we'll pick it up in a moment for you. He went pretty steadily around his practice times and then really blasted through to take pole. John Blanchard is out in front, a lot of experience in this car with this driver.
Yes, John Blanchard is the #1 driver for the Swift team in Australia, and this is a 1991 chassis. He finished second in the Motorcraft Driver to Europe Series. There's one car running very wide there. Blanchard leading at the moment. He's already won 2 Motorcraft Formula Ford festivals, and he's got a lot of Formula Ford experience.
Well, White's way back in 7th spot. Now, he's only 17 years of age, Jeff White, so, and I believe he's had a big impact on the class.
He really has. He started racing in Formula Ford in September 1990, and this car is actually a 1989 Van Diemen, and this is the car that Russell Ingall brought to the country, finished second in the Motorcraft Series and won his Motorcraft Formula Ford Festival here.
Stephen White. Well, here we bad start. Cars going all over the place, but that's all right. Now, we'll see a lot of slipstreaming here, Alan, because tactics play such an important place. Look at this. It's a high-speed train, isn't it?
Oh, it certainly is, because they're all very, very equal in horsepower. I mean, if you start talking 1 or 2 horsepower in Formula Ford, you've got the big advantage. And as such, they have to get very, very close to the guy in front, hoping that he will part the wind. It'll make it a little bit easier for your car to get down that straight, and then you pull out and pass him in the braking area, and that's where most of the passing is done, obviously, in these cars.
Jeff Quebec is running in 2nd place. Michael Dutton is in 3rd at the moment. Now, Jeff Quebec, he's an interesting story too. He's a South Australian, but runs on a very narrow budget.
He really does. It's a 1990 Van Diemen Jeff's driving, and he only does 1 or 2 national events a year. He concentrates on the South Australian Club Series. He really is running like Russell Ingall, also from Adelaide, on a shoestring, and of course no one can test here beforehand. He's in 2nd place and doing an absolutely fantastic job.
So plenty of youngsters in this field, and that's healthy.
That's what it's all about. It's getting people into the sport of open-wheeler racing, nurturing them, giving them a couple of seasons on racecraft, how to set up the car. I mean, there's a lot of little black arts associated with this formula. The guys that have got perhaps slightly better budget than the other ones have the tyres and they buff them down. You can only race with tyres that have got treads. But, you know, if you've got the knowledge and the budget, you can go and buy a couple of pairs of tyres, and the trick apparently is to buff your tyres down and get a little bit of that tread off to turn them into a semi-slick, and these are all the little tricks that go on, and you learn this by doing it.
Stephen White at the moment making a move. He was in fifth. I think he might have, there he is now in the red and yellow car. You'll see him coming down. We'll try and pick him up for you because he's charging through the pack at the moment, trying to make up after that bad start. So some pretty aggressive driving at the moment from Stephen White, Phil.
Yeah, he just passed 2 cars under brakes at the end of the back straight, and he has really got his socks on at the moment. He's up to 3rd place, and Crevex is right in his sights.
Well, on that lap, he's gone 7th, 5th up to 3rd, so we still might see plenty of pressure on Blanchard. That's him there, the red-coloured car. Clipsal sponsorship on it, and we'll see if he can pick up 2nd place.
See, the beautiful thing about this class racing, as I mentioned before, it's about racecraft. It's about finding out where your where your strong points are and your weak points are, finding out where you can. Here he is now. You see, he's got himself placed in a position where he'll be able to get this guy on the inside for the right-hander and off the bumps as well. There, he's got him.
Beautiful bit of driving. He's taken Jeff Trebek now into 2nd place. What a drive. He's come from 2nd right up into, or 7th, right up into 2nd place.
Yeah, well, this is going to be interesting now because you're going to see quite a bit of defensive driving from Blanchard, I would imagine, and he'll really make the young guy work for his money now.
Well, Phil, before coming on air for the race, you're saying that John Blanchard would be trying to apply plenty of pressure on Stephen White during the race because White had pole position. Now we see that role reversed.
Well, actually, that bad start may have been the best thing that's happened to Stephen White in this race, Darryl, because it's taken the pressure off him. He hasn't had time to think about the pressure from behind. He hasn't had John Blanchard over his shoulder. He's had to think about the guys in front. How can I get past this guy? How can I get into 3rd? And now he's 2nd, and he is right on John Blanchard.
Fantastic racing here. Stephen White putting on plenty of pressure.
He saw Blanchard pull swiftly to the right then. That was to break White from the toe and also put himself... Oh, he's gone around the outside of him. He's actually... I'll tell you what, I don't think he's suffering any horsepower in the horsepower department.
No, he gets his engines done in Melbourne by Peter Lana, and there's a great deal of competition not only amongst the drivers and the chassis in Formula Ford, but the engine builders as well, and Peter Lana has put a real rocket in this Van Diemen.
Well, he showed plenty of character from 7th to 1st, from pole and a bad start. Doing it all right now is Stephen White. So Blanchard now moving in, tucked into 2nd place, waiting for them to come onto the straight now. Blanchard moving right up into the slipstream. We'll be back shortly. Join us for more action with the Formula Fords. This is a good race. What about that with the Formula Fords? White, Blanchard, Trebek, Dutton, Searle and Moody. They're the top 6, but the top 2 are having an absolute dogfight here. This young Stephen White, the 17-year-old, had pole position, muffed the start in a big way. Oh, and off they go.
That's John Wade from Portland. Unfortunately, that's his 2nd accident in 2 days, Darryl, and that's the end of his weekend.
John Wade, now he's another youngster I met the other day, actually.
16 years of age.
16 years of age, and they've come a long way from Portland. They were so excited to be here, and gee whiz, that's bad luck. We took them over to the Jordan team. Andrea de Cesaris had a talk to him and said that when he was racing Formula Fords in Europe, it was the fun part of his career. He absolutely loved it. So the youngster will be disappointed. Never mind, it's all about learning here. And look at this, Blanchard now putting lots and lots of pressure on young Stephen White, but he's handling it pretty well, AJ.
He certainly is. In fact, this will be a great race for him. There we go. A replay of this. Oh, yeah, he just came in a little bit too hard, got the back out under brakes, clipped the curb, and away he went, a la Zanardi. So when you took him up to the Jordan team, was he talking to Zanardi or to De Cesaris?
Oh, dear. Yeah, Andrea was very pleased to meet the youngster at 16 years of age, and they actually had a game of Grand Prix racing in a simulator. And the kid almost, in fact, I think he did knock him off, if my memory serves me right.
Well, you know, this is the wonderful part about this racing is, you know, at the risk of repeating myself time and time again, you know, 17 years of age, he's in the lead, he's at the Australian Grand Prix at Adelaide, which is a really great circuit. He's coming under tremendous pressure. Oh, dearie me. Well, he's not the one coming under the pressure. Blanchard was.
Blanchard really down the escape road under brakes, and that's the very corner that sent it in the same thing, and you warned before those bumps. If you don't do it right, you get out of shape.
Well, what he did then is he got his left-hand wheel up on the curb, and that effectively took about 40 or 50% of his braking capabilities away from him, and that made him go deeper into the corner.
So Jeff Trebek now from South Australia moves into 2nd place. Can Blanchard fight his way back, Phil?
He's got a lot of work to do. The two men in front of him, actually the three men, Ron Searle and Crevex and Dutton, are very, very good peddlers. And of course, that's taken all the pressure off Stephen White. And with only a couple of laps to go here, he's got 2.5 laps to go. He could just about seal it.
That's right. Now what White has to do now is realise that he's got that gap and just drive really cleanly. Don't overextend himself, because he doesn't have to. There's only 2 laps to go, and all he has to do now is keep it on the island and keep it nice and clean, and it'll be a great victory for him.
Blanchard back in 5th. You can see him just behind this group here, but there's a bit of, well, close racing. It's all cut and thrust up here. A dogfight in for 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th. But young Stephen White now out in front. The pressure's off him. We were talking about the chassis of these cars, Phil. Most of them come from Europe. In fact, the good one. Oh, dear me, number 17 with a little bit of jumping. Gassati there. Oh.
It's come a long way over from Perth, and it's going to be a very long trip back with a bent motor car in the back of the truck.
Oh dear, trying hard and getting out of shape, but fortunately no one hitting him lap 7, so they're running out of laps. But basically all of these chassis come out of England.
Yes, the 3 major manufacturers in England now, Darryl. Van Diemen, as we see the replay of the Gazzatti incident, just going in too wide through the left-hander, and that got him all out of shape, and that was the end of it. Nose first and concrete time. Yes, so as I was saying, the major chassis manufacturers in the UK, Van Diemen, Swift and Reynard, all have agents in Australia, and we're expecting to see up to half a dozen 1992 cars. I believe they've already been ordered. In fact, John Blanchard's car will be on its way next week, and that's how serious Formula Ford is now, Darryl. If you don't have the latest and greatest chassis, you're not really in the hunt.
Very quickly, a package like we're seeing now out in front, what is that worth in total value?
Well, Stephen White's 1989 car would be probably in the vicinity of $25,000 to $30,000 ready to race. I know that Michael Dutton, who we see at the top of the picture in car number 6, he's selling this car at the moment for $29,000. So there's no such thing as cheap motor racing, but this is relatively expensive.
Yeah, but having said all of that, a good speedboat costs you more than that.
A good what?
Speedboat. So it's down to sport. If you want to go water skiing, a good speedboat will cost you more than that. I think this is very cheap motor racing, to be honest, with that sort of money.
Michael Dutton having a big fight there. Gee whiz, I'll just pick up who he's fighting with because it's a great dice.
That's Ron Searle, car number 7 in the Reynard. Oh, just running a little bit wide there. Ron had a very good run in this car towards the end of the season and actually won the Formula Ford support race at Bathurst last month. And now he's got Blanchard on his tail.
So Blanchard moving through the back. We've seen some great charging and great racing. Stephen White had to do it to take the lead. Blanchard fighting his way back for a place. I don't think he can get the lead, but he's certainly fighting back for a place. Running out of time and laps. It's Stephen White, 17-year-old. He just took it easy the first 2 days of practice. He learnt the circuit, saw where everything was placed around the track, took the pole, muffed the start, was back to 7th and fought his way back to 1st. It's a race he'll never forget.
He's done everything right so far, except for the start, as you mentioned, but he's driven very coolly and very cleanly, which you've got to do in these things, because the minute you go sideways, you scrap off so much speed. You know, they're quite underpowered, really, and you have to drive very, very cleanly and keep those wheels as straight as you can for as long as you can.
Blanchard doing a good job in the white car with the lime green and blue colours. He was, of course, running 2nd. Got into the lead after this fellow mucked up the start in a big way, and then all of a sudden ran down that escape road just slightly and went back into 5th spot, fighting back pretty well. Stephen White at the moment doing everything right, as Alan Jones has said. And by gee, shown a bit of character too, Phil, hasn't he?
He really has. Getting it on pole position was a big effort. He had the overnight pressure. I don't know how well he slept last night, but he muffed the start. He fought his way through to the lead. Look at that, a 50 or 60 metre break. I don't know how he's going to go back to high school next week. He's got exams coming up. His mother was so excited yesterday. She flew over especially to see this race, and I know that the White family put a great deal of effort into it, and congratulations to them. They've all come through.
He'll be a big name around the school next week.
I'll say, and quite rightly so too. I mean, he's obviously got, looks like a bit of dust flying up. He's obviously got a very big future, and you know, Phil, with the scrutineering of these motor cars, what, the first 6 will be fairly heavily scrutineered?
Yes, all the cars will be impounded after this event, Alan, and they'll be looking very, very closely at the top 3 or 4 cars to make sure they meet the stringent regulations. But I'm sure that Stephen White's got no problems at the moment.
So Stephen White now leading this race very, very well, and as you can see now, flashing up to take Glenn Dix's flag. Although if you ever took Glenn Dix's flag physically, you'd be in a lot of trouble, I think. I think it's welded to him. We love him here in Australian motor racing. But what a great drive from Stephen White, just 17 years of age, and oh, what a terrible way to finish.
That's Paul Mulhern in his Swift. He's had a good weekend. Unfortunately, blotted the copybook on the very last lap.
Oh, dear, 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 and a bit of damage there too. But Stephen White, there it is, the damage result from that spin and hit the wall. We were saying, Alan, here you really can't make a mistake. You're going to hit something. And another one gone off too.
Neil Richardson, number 41 from right here in Adelaide. He took 3 corners off the car yesterday. That makes 4 for the weekend.
So that's been expensive.
They're all going for it on the last lap. I mean, I don't really, you know, I can't see the point in sort of hanging everything out to come 12th instead of 13th. But there you go. I suppose it's all good enough.
Well, plenty of drama here with the Formula Fords. It's been a tremendous race. We really have seen some great racing. As you said, AJ, the great thing about it is that you learn racecraft, and that's what it's all about, isn't it?
It certainly is, and you know, it's a good way to go open wheel and motor racing cheaply.
Well, they are the top 6 for you. Stephen White with a brilliant win here. Jeff Quebec, Michael Dutton, Ron Searle, John Blanchard, Andrew Reid are 1 through 6. Congratulations to Stephen White. That was a great drive. And John Blanchard bumped way back, but fought his way back into a top spot. That was a good drive too. Well, Ken, that was a great race. I enjoyed that one. Plenty of good racing, and they're great little cars and a package that our young drivers can afford.
Yes, Darryl, some had a good afternoon, and as you can see, some had a fairly ordinary day, fairly ordinary weekend. But, Jackie, it has been one of those sort of days at Adelaide. We wanted to get the F1s out there. We had a bit of a problem with the weather. Then they got out there. There was some quick laps, and we saw some other incident-packed races. So it's had plenty going for it today, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think we've had a very good day of motorsport. That Formula